Welcome to a special edition of my Dressing My Dress Form series, where today I'm going to put 4 of my favorite Star Wars costumes on my dress forms. I wanted to get 4 of my favorite Star Wars costumes displayed on the dress forms to have in the background of an interview I'm doing tomorrow. I'll be chatting with Cosplay Cafe about Star Wars costumes, and you can tune in to that on YouTube Friday night, March 15th. I'm starting out here with my Liberty Dies Padme, or her final Senate appearance. And I have already done an individual video on this costume, which is why I'm not talking in depth about it here. In fact, 3 out of 4 of the costumes in this video I've already done individual videos on. So instead of talking about construction here, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about Star Wars costumes. Next up is my Padme packing gown, which I made in 2022. My love for Star Wars costumes goes all the way back to when I was a little kid. My mom had a Bride of Frankenstein Halloween costume that I would put on and pretend to be Princess Leia. I got into cosplaying in 1998, so when Phantom Menace came out in 1999, I was not at a place where I was comfortable making a costume from that yet. Plus, at least in my area, people really didn't dress up for midnight showing, so I didn't even think of that being a possibility. It wasn't until Attack of the Clones came out in 2002 that I became absolutely obsessed with Padme's costumes, and I immediately turned around and made my very first version of Padme's slate gown for Dragon Con that year. I also joined the Rebel Legion and then the 501st Legion. I was really heavily involved in both for like the mid-2000s, and I made a lot of Star Wars costumes in that time. But interests come and go, and I eventually moved on to other costuming interests. Now I'm putting my Padme late gown on the dress form, and this is my 5th version of Padme's late gown from 2019. And I will be doing an individual video on this costume very soon. But anyway, I got out of Star Wars costumes for many years. In that time, I did a lot of superhero costumes, a lot of Doctor Who costumes. And then around the time the sequels got announced is when I rediscovered my love for Star Wars costuming. One of my big reasons for getting drawn back in is because I had almost done all of Leia's canon costumes back during my first phase of Star Wars costuming. And the only original trilogy costume I was missing was her Bespin costume. And of course now I had new sequel costumes to do too. So I jumped back in and I finally did this Bespin costume. And I did already do an individual video about this costume also, which you can find in my Leia playlist. And even though I have been back in this renaissance of making Star Wars costumes, I still have not finished all of Leia's costumes. I've still got a few more of her sequel costumes to do. And of course, I keep getting distracted by Padme and other pretty things, like my Breha costume that I made last year.